Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm back with another interesting topic which is about interviews. Everything you need to know about succeeding in an interview will be covered in this video. In my previous video I talked about what the process is like when you're looking for jobs, and I summarized everything that I learned in the process, my tips and some suggestions that really were helpful in the journey. So this video will actually talk about the next very important step, which is interviews and cracking those interviews, what you should expect and what the process looks like in Canada. Throughout my job hunting process, I gave a lot of interviews, went till the final round in some, but did not go even to the second round in a few of them, but finally landed the job I desired. In that entire process, I went back and forth with a lot of stuff, in the sense I had to make every interview a little better. I learned something new from every interview, and I've just compiled every learning in this video. And today I just want to share everything that I learned in that entire process so that it can help anyone who is in the process of giving interviews or will be in the future. Before we dive into that, I just want to thank each and every one of you for showing so much love and support to the previous video. I really hope it was helpful to most of you guys. For this video as well, for ease, I will be dividing the video in different chapters. You can find the timestamps in the description box below. So in this video, we'll mainly be focusing on what the entire interview process looks like in Canada, what can you expect, what are the different stages. If you've come this far, definitely stick around till the end to know my top must-dos and tips that'll definitely help you succeed in your interviews. Now, let's talk about what my experience was like when I was interviewing for companies here in Canada. For a lot of interviews, I did end up reaching the final round, but for some of my interviews, I did not even pass the second round. And that is when I got to thinking that what am I doing wrong? And I came across certain points that I rectified in my process, and I applied those to the future interviews that I was going to give, and those actually worked in my favor and allowed me to reach the final stage. So let's talk about what the stages of interviews look like in Canada. And I think these stages are common across all countries, but of course it can differ from company to company and sector to sector. First, of course, once your resume is selected by the HR, you get a call from the HR. So basically the first round is the HR round. And then comes the next round where you'll be meeting the hiring manager. Then there might be another round where you meet other team members, and mostly after that there's a technical round or a test, and the final round is the round where you meet the team in person. So this is what the Canadian experience was like for me. So the first round, after your resume gets picked up, you should definitely expect a call. They don't call you right away. The basic code of conduct is they email you saying that they would like to speak to you, they block time with you, and they call you or book a virtual call through Teams or Google Meets. In the HR round is very important, is because this is the round where they will be testing you for your communication skill, your intention of applying for the job, to just see if you are even fit for the job. They basically vet you out and see if you are fit enough to be sent to the next round. I personally had very different types of HR rounds. There were HR rounds where it was absolutely relaxed. They just spoke to me, asked me about my previous experience. And there are HR rounds where the HR came prepared with very specific questions. Like, why this job? Why do I think I will be the right fit for this job? What are my strengths? So before any interview, my advice is, when you're even preparing your resume, like I talked about in the previous video, think about your strengths. Think about what your entire experience was like in the previous company. In your job experience, what have you learned? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Give these things enough thought. I feel like setting aside a day to just brainstorm about these things and writing all these down in a paper can come in really handy in any kind of job interview or in any kind of job hunting process. So coming back to what the HR round is, so it's mainly about communication skills, It's about your intent and the basics of your job role and what the job description asks is as well. So you should always be able to tie your skills with the job description. I would still advise that show excitement in the HR round, talk to them. Of course, communication skill is absolutely important in this stage, because if you're not able to communicate, if you're not able to actually express your excitement and curiosity about this role, how will the HR know that you want to go through all the other rounds? If they see something like that is missing, I feel like you do lose a chance of moving forward in the process. So in the HR round, they would also be asking you what your expectation of salary is, when would be your last day in the company that you're currently working in, if you'll be comfortable joining at a certain date, and very basic things like that. But especially when it comes to compensation, if you are aware of what the compensation is like in the industry and in your role, definitely go for it, tell your number. But if you're not aware how to tackle the question of what the compensation should be like and you're afraid of giving them a lower number, instead you should ask the HR in a very subtle and polite way that if they can give you the range that they're looking at for this job role. A lot of times they are comfortable sharing it, and a lot of times they are not. In that case, you can say that we can circle back to this a little later. And while you say that, you can also say that we can discuss this at a later stage if that's okay with you, and I'm definitely flexible with negotiations. It's as simple as that. After your discussion with the HR manager will be setting aside some time to actually get you to meet the team, or it's usually the hiring manager. So, this is when you'll be asked about your availability in the coming week, and they'll probably set aside some time as well at their end to schedule a call for you. So, congratulations, this is your second round of interview. Now, this round is absolutely a make or break, and I would urge you to prepare very well for this round. This round is usually between 2 to 3 people, or it sometimes can be between just you and the hiring manager as well. Depends on what kind of company there is and how big of a firm that is. It all depends on that. For example, when I reached the second round for one of the agencies, there was only one person who interviewed me, so it differs from company to company. But this is a round that's very important, because that is when you are actually going to talk about your job, your expectation. They're going to test you if you are the right fit for the role, and you should be very prepared for this round. So, this round can also include a technical round in some job roles, but in my experience in this round, they actually try to know that what kind of work I've done before, if I'm aware about the kind of work that this company does, and if I'm aware about what kind of work the Canadian market is doing in this particular sector. They are basically trying to understand you as an employee. So, this is the interview where you actually talk about what you've learned about the sector, what are you excited about in your job role currently, what are you excited about to work on in future. So in this round, they're also looking to see if they can form a rapport with you, if you are comfortable talking about your previous experiences, your strengths. This is where they're going to ask you about any work that you are really proud of. And this is why we're going to come to what exact preparation do you need to do for this in the later stage of this video. But this is where you really need to be very precise and very thoughtful with whatever you are telling the hiring manager, because these are the people that you're going to work with if you get hired, and then they are also looking for a cultural match. So knowing the Canadian landscape in these kind of interviews and playing on your strengths becomes very important. Now, the next step usually is that once they are happy with you, once they are convinced that you can be moved forward, that is when they probably would give you a test, and they give you some time to actually do the test and give that back to them. But please know this, it's not just about doing the test and submitting it. In the later stage, they may also question you on how you approach the test. So there is no shortcuts to the test or in this entire process. Now after the test comes the round where you actually meet the senior managers and the senior management. It can also be a CEO in some cases, or it can be VPs or SVPs that you'll be meeting at this stage. This stage should be reassuring, because if they have taken time out to actually put you through the senior management, that means they are convinced that you can be moved forward. And this round is mostly about, you know, in my experience, this round has always been so relaxed. I have gone into these rounds with a lot of nervousness, but mostly the senior management rounds are really relaxed. They are they're mainly looking to just converse with you and understand what kind of person you are, what your interests are, what excites you about your own industry, what excites you about your work. It's a very formal yet very casual conversation, so you should not worry too much, but always put your best foot forward when you're giving an interview. This is the time you should also subtly mention about what your aspirations are, because these are the senior management people that you'll be working with, and they should know what kind of intent you're coming with in the company. And people remember things, when you are talking to them about some things, people do remember that, and there's no harm in talking about your aspirations. If you're planning to be a part of that company, your seniors definitely should know about your aspirations. So the next final stage is literally a very good news, is when you actually meet the team in person. So in the entire interview process, you might be meeting your manager, you might be meeting the VPs, the senior VPs, the MDs in some cases. But they also want you to meet the team. They also want you to see the company, the office that you'll be working in. So that is when the in-person meeting comes into play. You will still be interviewed. It does not mean that you become very relaxed, that okay, I've got this job, because anything can go wrong. You still need to be very careful about what you talk about. It still needs to be formal. You still need to convince them that you are the right fit for the job. And honestly, I would just say, just be excited about this. You have come this far, be confident, and you can pull through. Now it's time for the tips and must-dos in an interview to ensure that you actually land the job. The first thing is, please know your job description super well. That's going to come in handy in the first till the last round, because this is what you're going to base your answers on. Your every answer needs to connect back to how you are a good fit for the job. And the job description is actually a holy grail in this entire process. So be very thorough with what they are looking for and how you are the perfect fit for that particular ask. And the second and the most important point is spend time in just reflecting upon what your previous job was like, or what your current job is, what your strengths are, what are the projects that you've worked on, what is the work that you're really proud of. Because believe me, these are the pointers that you can actually base your entire interview on. You can easily direct the interview towards your success, towards your best performing campaigns or work that you've done in your company. When you're actually writing these things down, it actually makes you feel so confident and prepared for the interviews. So I would highly suggest spend some time just reflecting on the work that you've been doing, the work that you're super proud of. For example, if you are great at management, you can talk about that. For instance, in my previous job, I worked across a lot of crisis management as well. So while doing that, while my job was definitely communications, but because I have also handled a lot of crisis, I know I'm good with crisis management now. So when I actually started writing all of these things down, I could finally pinpoint that, okay, while my job was maybe focused at public relations or marketing, these are the small secondary talent or skills that I do have. It's very important for you to actually reflect on the work that you have done. How would you place your strengths? How would you place your weaknesses? So I would definitely want you to think about your work and put that across in a piece of paper. This would actually help you answer a lot of questions during the course of your interview process. Is why should we hire you? Why do you think you're the right fit for the job? What are your strengths? Or what sets you apart from other competitors or other applicants, right? So these pointers that you actually jot down will become your ammunition during the interview process. Now, the next not so popular, a little challenging task is talking about yourself or actually working on your introduction. This does seem like a daunting task when someone actually asks us to put together something about ourselves and an introduction where you want to summarize everything but in a very concise, presentable manner. Take some time for that. I know this step will not be a favorite step for a lot of people, but the introduction should talk about what your experience has been, what you specialize in, how many years of experience you've had, and any interesting brands or any interesting work that you've done. This should be like does not need to be too long. It should just summarize you in a way that should actually let the interviewer know who you are, what your background is like. And one special tip here would be always end in a note that you want the interview to go in. For instance, I would always end my interviews talking about a specific work that I'm really proud of in my current role, and you would always notice what you actually talk about in the end is the topic that they usually take forward, and in that way you have a lot of control over your own interview. Now, another not so popular exercise is actually writing down your strengths and weaknesses. Now, strengths, still very easy. You can still talk about your strengths that yes, I'm good with communications. Yes, I'm good with client management. I'm good with accounting or any other skills that you may have. But where it gets tricky is talking about your weaknesses, because your weakness should not be something that I would not want to hire you. Your weakness should be something that still should reflect as something that you can work upon. You can talk about working on finding that perfect work-life balance is something that you are striving for, and you're actively working on finding that balance and ensuring you're focusing on other aspects of your life as well. What I'm trying to say is your weakness should always be something that you can say that you're working towards improving. So give it a good thought and put these pointers down. This will help you across all your interviews, mark my words on that. So the next point that you should work on is, what did you love about that role when you applied for the job? A lot of times we end up applying for jobs because we are in a desperate situation, because we do want to land a job, right? So sometimes we do take a shot and apply for certain roles knowing maybe you're not going to like it as much, but when you're actually sitting down for the interviews, they would definitely want to know that what did you like about the job. And in that sense, before every interview, you should definitely reflect upon what do you like about that role, what are you excited about for that role, and prepare a small answer for that. A quick tip: so every time you're asked that why are you the right fit for the role, this is where you actually combine your strengths with the ask in the job description. If someone asks me that why are you the right fit for the role, I can talk about my experience in the communication sector and servicing clients actually fits perfectly with the job description, and with my experience I can serve this role a lot better. And like I mentioned, write down the work that you're really proud of, because they definitely want to talk about what was your best work that you're really proud of. The interviewers can ask that what was a tricky situation in your current role that you tackled and you're proud of. So in these cases and these questions, you can very easily answer those when you have already put down certain instances that you are actually proud of, any problematic situation that you dealt with. Now, the next very important tip that I would give you is that have your own questions ready that you will ask even the HR, the hiring manager, and the senior management. Now, the questions can be very different for all of these parties. For instance, to the HR, you can actually ask what the work from home or work from office routine looks like, what the culture of the company is like, and maybe to the hiring manager, you can ask more about the role and what would their expectation be. Now, with the senior management, the questions differ a little bit. Maybe you can ask them what their vision is for the company, what their thoughts are like for this particular team that you're working in, what are they expecting from you as an employee if you're hired for this role, what their goal is for this year, and stuff like that. So in the sense, with every person, the questions and your approach differs. So really have these questions aside, and I feel like in interviews you should have questions for them. Another pro tip here is, before any interview, definitely go through the website of the company to just see the work that they have done. And for example, if you don't have a lot of questions and in that moment you're taken by surprise, you can just ask them about something interesting that you actually read on the website and you would want to know more about. For instance, I would also ask the senior management or the hiring manager if there are avenues for employees to learn more skills, if there are any workshops that they actually conduct for upskilling. So questions like this just basically show your proactiveness for this job and also presents you as a person who's curious and wants to know more about the job. The next step is also something that you should definitely do and not a lot of people talk about. Know your interviewers. You definitely know before any interview who you'll be put across. I always want to know who will be interviewing me so that I have some background on that person. How many years of experience do they have? For how long have they been in the company? And in my interviews, I would often ask them that how their experience has been in the company. That actually also tells you a lot about what the company culture is like and what the current employees say about the company. And if you're someone who's applying to a Canadian company for the first time, like I mentioned, understand the Canadian market, understand what your sector is doing in this market. For instance, you are applying for a role in an advertising agency. You should be able to at least talk about one impressive work that you've seen in the Canadian market in the advertising space. They would also ask you what your favorite campaign is like, or if there is a campaign that you've really liked in the recent months, or if you're in influencer marketing, any Canadian influencer that you're really fond of. So this is why you really need to do your homework about the industry and the market that you're actually trying to enter. This is super, super important. Do not miss this. And in my experience, most of the times when I've actually talked about the campaigns that I've really loved or any work in the Canadian market that I've really loved, you actually end up having such nice conversations. People love to share their opinion on that particular work as well. You, in that moment, actually build a rapport with your interviewer, and that's a beautiful thing that actually works in your favor. And the last golden tip that I would give is revisit your basics. Imagine if you're telling someone who has no idea about your industry or your work, imagine how you're going to explain your job to them. That is how you actually approach that entire one pager that you make. Please do that. That has been my holy grail. When I actually started the interview process, I had a notebook that I actually wrote everything in, and till the last interview, till I landed my job, that those pages really, really helped me. And I'm so happy that I actually did that, and I'm so happy that I'm able to share this with you guys, because that is what pushed me towards success. And that was all for today's video. I hope you guys found this helpful. I'll be back with more such videos, so stay tuned. I'll see you in the next one.